CNN.
This is CNN Breaking News.
I'm Jim Clancy, the CNN Center. Britain's Princess Diana has been killed in a car crash in Paris. Her companion, Dodi Al-Fayed, was also killed in the crash along with the driver of the car. We get more now from CNN Siobhan Darrow.
The British public woke up to tragic news Sunday morning. Their beloved Princess Diana is dead after her car crashed in Paris late Saturday night.
You don't believe it's true, and I think people will be shocked.
I can't believe she's dead.
It's really terrible. You know, my heart goes for the kids.
The man she seemed to finally have found some happiness with, Dodi Al-Fayed, also died. And many are pointing the finger at the press. The couple's car was apparently being chased by paparazzi who've been in hot pursuit of the princess and her new lover all summer as they vacationed together in the Mediterranean. For weeks now, the tabloids have been in a feeding frenzy. Bidding wars have reached close to $1 million for intimate photos of the couple. The princess had pleaded with paparazzi in the past to leave her alone, begging for protection from what she calls a distressing intrusion into her private life, even filing a restraining order against one photographer last year. Only days earlier, Diana lashed out at the British press, calling them ferocious and unforgiving. In an interview with the French newspaper Le Monde, she said the press is only interested in my mistakes, that abroad she's treated differently. Princess Diana said in that interview she would have left Britain if it wasn't for her sons. Princess Diana always said she wanted to be the queen of people's hearts. Driven out of a loveless marriage just over a year ago, she could always count on the adoration of the British public. In her death, that adoration can only grow. Siobhan Darrow, CNN, London.
It was reported some hours ago that Mohammed Al-Fayed, the father of Dodi Al-Fayed and the owner of the Harrods department store in Britain, was en route to Paris. Of course, the news reached him, the tragic news that his son was killed in that car crash alongside Princess Diana. The two of them had just gone to dinner at the Ritz. They were traveling in their car. Apparently, as Siobhan reported there, persistent reports that they were being pursued by photographers aboard motorcycles who were trying to get snapshots of them. It's unclear whether or not what role exactly that played in the accident, but it is certainly known the vehicle in which they were riding was going at a tremendously high speed. For more on the crash, the investigation, and the scene in Paris, let's go now to CNN's Jim Bitterman. Jim?
Jim, I think the police investigation will be the next turn of events here in Paris. I think that's what people will be looking towards. As we understand it, the police, according to French press reports, have detained 5 photographers who may or may not have been involved in the accident this evening, including apparently one photographer who stayed on to take pictures of the crash scene, and he was apparently beaten up. Now we don't know exactly who did the beating. It may have been other bystanders who arrived at the scene of the accident, but he may have been beaten by some of the people around him. So that'll be, I think, the next turn. The question will be, is there any criminal liability here on the parts of other people involved? Jim?
Well, Jim, we don't have any official reports in, obviously. The investigation barely underway, but just looking at the wreckage, it was obvious that that car was going at a tremendously high rate of speed.
Well, the French Interior Minister confirmed that to some extent. He said it was traveling at a high rate of speed. French radio reported that it was at least 100 kilometers, 60 miles an hour when the accident took place. That would have been substantially 50% over the speed limit that's posted at the scene.
Christopher Dickey is on the line, the Paris bureau chief for Newsweek magazine. Christopher, I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about the reaction in Paris this morning.
Well, I think people are stunned. I think the French liked Lady Di, Princess Diana, a lot. They found her beautiful, a fairy tale princess the way the rest of the world did, and they thought probably that she would be respected and have her privacy better respected here in France than she did in Britain and other places that she went. I think there's also a little bit of shame here that this kind of event would take place in Paris, that someone who wanted to lead a more private life would find herself pursued in this particular fashion through the streets of Paris at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning.
It's a difficult time. Obviously, French authorities are going to have some kind of an explanation here. Was there any more learned about the driver of the vehicle? I don't know whether you learned any more.
The driver was an employee of the Ritz Hotel, which of course is owned by Mohammed Al Fayed, Dodi Fayed's father. It seems that they had had dinner there and had decided that they were going to give the paparazzi the slip, and that they had taken that car for that purpose. At least that's what's being reported by some of the French press at this moment. The idea would have been that they would shoot down and along the quays and go to Mohammed Al Fayed's very large house in the 16th arrondissement. That certainly would fit with the direction in which they were headed at the time of the crash.
All right, Christopher Dickey, Newsweek bureau chief there, telling us about some of the latest that's been known. I want to take us back for a few minutes. This is the way some of the people in Europe might like to see how the news was shared in Britain by the BBC, the official broadcaster of the death of Princess Diana.
Normal programming has been suspended. And we now join Martin Lewis in the news studio.
This is BBC Television from London. Diana, Princess of Wales, has died after a car crash in Paris. The French government announced her death just before 5 o'clock this morning. Buckingham Palace confirmed the news shortly afterwards. Normal programs have been suspended while we bring you the latest developments throughout the morning.
That official announcement aired just about 40 minutes ago. Of course, it is already daybreak there in Britain. Many people getting up with a morning cup of coffee, discovering by tuning in to the BBC that Princess Diana has died as a result of a car crash, a high-speed car crash in Paris, France. Siobhan Darrow is standing by in London. She has more on British reaction. Siobhan?
Well, Jim, as you say, it is still very early here. The shock and the enormity of the loss is only just sinking in as people begin to wake up. Now, Queen Elizabeth and Princess Diana's former husband, Prince Charles, have issued a statement saying that they are deeply shocked and distressed. The British Prime Minister, Tony Blair, said that he's utterly devastated, as is the whole country. So again, it's still early here. Certainly, many people are only now waking up to this utterly devastating news. Jim?
Are the newspapers, special editions coming out, I would imagine?
Yes, they are, because the early editions missed the story, so they will certainly be coming out. And certainly the newspapers in this country are going to do a lot of thinking about how they cover this, given the fact that the media may have played such a crucial role in this accident, Jim. All
right, we see there, it appears the Daily Mail, some of its copies, the Mail coming out with a special run there, noting the death of Princess Diana in that Paris car crash. Because it is so sudden, because it was so unexpected, perhaps because Princess Diana's light burned so bright, not only among the royals, but among so many people that are famous around the world, it just comes as more as of a shock. Is that the feeling that you're getting with the people that you've talked with there in Britain?
Yes, people said to us this morning they just can't believe it. They just absolutely can't believe it. Princess Diana was such a loved figure in this country. She certainly was a controversial woman in many ways, but she was greatly loved. She always said she wanted to be the queen of people's hearts, and in many ways she certainly was. She was very serious about her charities. She just came back from a trip to Bosnia where she was trying to get the world to ban landmines. She's traveled to Angola. We've seen her over the years in hospitals with children dying of AIDS, with children dying of cancer. She's a woman that really cared about the little people, and she really wanted to try and alleviate suffering in the world. So there's a lot of people in this country that are going to really deeply feel the loss, as they are around the world. We know that the United Nations has sent a statement of condolences saying the world has lost a great humanitarian, because Princess Diana she was considered the most photographed woman in the world. She did have the media hounding her, but she did her best to use that spotlight to focus on some of the needier people in the world, Jim.
Her relationship with Dodi Al-Fayed, obviously it had fascinated the tabloid press and even the broadsheet press to some extent. There were some, perhaps, conservatives in Britain that were a bit outraged by the relationship, but many others saw it as an opportunity for Diana to find the happiness that had eluded her for so many years.
Well, certainly, it's been, ironically, a year this week since Princess Diana and Prince Charles were officially divorced, and she had been linked with a number of people, but she came out very openly in this relationship, and certainly, from all the photographs we've seen, seemed very happy and satisfied, and there were a lot of people that were glad to see her finally getting on with her life and finding some kind of happiness indeed. But as you say, Dodi Al-Fayed was a somewhat controversial figure, mainly because his father, Mohammed Al-Fayed, who is the owner of Harrods, is in fact a controversial figure here in Britain. The Egyptian-born millionaire was in many ways credited with the downfall of the last government. He was involved in a number of political scandals and has tried on numerous occasions to gain British citizenship and has been refused. So there were certainly some eyebrows raised about that liaison. But indeed, there are just as many people that were glad to see Diana having fun.
Film producer Dodi Al-Fayed was a controversial, though flamboyant figure, if you will, on the international scene. For more perspective on who he was and his relationship with Princess Diana, we have this report from CNN's Porter Wagner.
Dodi Fayed was 41 years old, the son of Mohammed Al-Fayed, regarded as one of the wealthiest men in the world. Al-Fayed owns the luxury London department store Harrods and the Ritz Hotel in Paris. Dodi Fayed, a film producer and international jet-setter, is reported to be a multimillionaire himself. He produced such films as the Academy Award winner Chariots of Fire.
It's hard. It requires concentration of will, energy of soul.
The World According to Garp. And the FX movie.
Out of maybe 100 writers, Bill Condon came up with a great idea for this, for FX2, which everybody liked.
Fayed had homes in New York, London, Paris, Los Angeles, and Switzerland. He's dated a number of celebrities, including Brooke Shields and Britt Ekland. Like Diana, he's been married once and divorced. One of his former girlfriends, Kelly Fisher, says she was engaged to marry Fayed. She told CNN's Larry King that Fayed left her, as she put it, for a bigger fish.
I feel that Dodi is just really in love with the media attention and being with Princess Diana, and I think that's the bottom line with him. They love it, the Fayeds. They love it.
Fayed and Princess Diana are said to have met about 10 years ago when he played polo against her former husband, Prince Charles. Earlier this month, British newspapers were awash with speculation about the romantic future of Fayed and Princess Diana after photos were published that showed them embracing. The photos were the first evidence of a relationship between Diana and another man since she and Prince Charles were divorced in August of last year. One London tabloid speculated that Fayed and the princess would announce their engagement in September. Porter Anderson, CNN reporting.
One of the questions that is certain to come up again and again in the days that are ahead, and that is the question of the press. and the royal family, the press and Princess Diana specifically. The press, she said, had hounded her. It was unbearable, in her words, to try to deal with it. She specifically named the British press, but the situation, even last night in Paris at about midnight when photographers were pursuing her car, showed the type of life that she had as a result of almost incessant media attention. That media attention had really been brought to the fore, of course, with this relationship 1 year after her divorce from Prince Charles, her relationship with Dodi Al-Fayed, fueling all kinds of speculation that even a marriage might be in the offing. I want to bring in Andrew Roberts of the Sunday Times in our London bureau once again. Andrew knew Princess Diana. How much was she troubled by the press? She was very aware of the fact that she was a celebrity, that people wanted to see her, but did she feel that it had just become too unreasonable?
Oh, absolutely, yes. They wanted to see her, but not on her terms. She, you know, we've got laws in this country to stop people stalking, but we don't have a law to stop people from shoving camera lenses into your life constantly. I mean, the fact that we're hearing that a man actually took photographs of her dying in the car shows what scum these people are and how far they will actually just go.
What kind of a debate is there going to be? Will it be much of a debate, really?
There will be, I think, because the Labour Party, which has won the British general elections a couple of months ago, have spoken out in favour of a privacy, some form of privacy law. And if we had the same type of privacy law as they have, say, in France, then Princess Diana would probably be alive today, but we don't, and you're able to do absolutely anything. And she has been hounded literally to death.
Has her life been put in danger in the past? Have there been previous incidents where the press, by their actions, photographers, by their actions, physically put her life in danger, or other members of the royal family?
Well, they're constantly getting in the way of cars. You know, it's almost impossible sometimes to drive out of Kensington Palace, where she lives, for all the photographers that just fling themselves in the way of the car. But, of course, that would only harm them unless, as we've just seen, the driver is in some way put off and the car crashes. So yes, no, I mean it's a risk that she's had to live with, as well as obviously the normal risks of being assassinated. She survived an assassination attempt with Prince Charles that the IRA made on her in the mid-1980s. So she's lived with the possibility of sudden death all her life.
Princess Diana had made in the past efforts to try to satisfy the press, to try to satisfy their desires for photo opportunities, to make herself available. It didn't work. Why?
She went out of her way to do that in order to ensure that the things she was working for, one thinks, of course, of the cancer charity that she sold her dresses for recently, got the maximum amount of publicity and therefore the maximum amount of money for the causes she believed in. But the press just totally ignored any attempted deal. They would take that advantage of the the photo opportunity, and then they would go on and continue hounding her. It's impossible, really, to think of a way out of this without having a law, in the same way as we have a law against sexual stalkers.
Andrew Roberts of the Sunday Times, if you'll stay there, I'm going to get back to this issue of the press and whatever role they may have played in the tragedy that we have seen in Paris just about now 2.5 or 7 hours ago, rather, in Paris. The scene here that you see is a smashed Mercedes-Benz. Princess Diana of Britain was killed alongside her companion, Dodi Al-Fayed. This car that they were riding in crashed into a concrete pylon as it went in an underpass, through an underpass at the Alma Bridge in Paris along the Seine River. It was just after midnight, Paris time, when they were traveling along that route, reportedly being pursued by photographers aboard motorcycles. We don't know how many photographers there were. We have been told that police have detained several people, several photographers, one of them who remained at the scene taking photographs. Princess Diana was taken to a nearby hospital where doctors fought for hours to save her life. She passed away just about 4.5 hours ago. The word came from French officials. Outside Kensington Palace, the reaction today in Britain.
Out of the royals, you know, she's just the best out of the entire family, and she's gone.
I'm not sure what I think, really. I think it's just awful.
Greg Swift of the Daily Express is standing by on the line. Greg, before I get into the whole press issue, I just want to ask you your thoughts this day.
Well, I think mine are pretty much like the rest of the country. One of shock and bewilderment, really. Something that none of us could have predicted. I know that we've heard comments as an accident waiting to happen, but I don't think any of us really believe anything like this could happen.
It is the suddenness of it. It is also the life that all of us shared to one extent or another. I lived in Britain for a while, and I know
Indeed.
that there was a different feeling about Princess Diana there. But how do you think the people of Britain are going to take this news?
Well, they'd be shocked. I mean, already it's not quite 7:30 in the morning here, but the country is already pretty wide awake and in quite a state of shock.
The way that it happened, the news that paparazzi were pursuing their car, that of Dodi Al-Fayed and Princess Diana, how does that change the story in your view? How will it change the mood, perhaps, of the British public?
Well, quite obviously, I just think there'll be a furious debate about the role of the press in Princess Diana's life over the past 15 years. No doubt I just think a large majority of the public will take a fairly dim view of the press activities, but I think it's important to draw quite a big distinction between the activities of Italian, French and Spanish paparazzi and the activities of members of the British press. As a general rule, the sort of hounding that Diana has experienced through her life and obviously quite recently abroad is generally carried out by foreign paparazzi photographers who have no sense of moral code. They're not affiliated to any press code of conduct, and they really are sort of free agents to come and go and act as they please. I mean, we're getting reports, as you've already heard, that one of these guys was taking photographs while she's trapped in the wreckage of the car. Quite where he thought he would be able to sell those pictures is anyone's guess, but that kind of activity really beggars belief.
But it was the British press that Princess Diana singled out for their harsh treatment of her.
Indeed, yes. No, there's no question. She has always been a main news story for the papers in this country, and there's always been a love-hate relationship between the two of us.
What is a picture of Diana worth, an exclusive picture on the cover of a tabloid newspaper? What has it been worth in the past 5 years in terms of circulation?
Circulation is worth thousands, probably tens of thousands.
She had that much power that she was pursued.
Absolutely. I mean, the whole country, well, indeed the world, has a deep fascination for everything she does, and she was and will remain one of the most popular figures in the world.
There was a fascination not only with her triumphs in life, but also with her troubles in life.
That's right. That is right.
Why is it that the British public demanded so much, to know so many details of this woman's life?
It's difficult to say. The deep fascination really sort of began almost from the time that she married Prince Charles. It was the fairy tale wedding. Millions of people in this country watched it on TV, as they did around the world. And really from that moment on, everyone has wanted to know everything about her.
Greg Swift, one final thought from you, and that is how you will remember Princess Diana. Any personal experiences?
No, unfortunately I didn't get to know her that well. But she has had and will always have a sort of lasting impact on all of our lives, I think.
Greg Swift of the Daily Express. Thank you for being us. We continue to cover the story of the death of Princess Diana, along with her companion and a driver on a pair of streets along the Seine River in the early morning hours in Paris. A bodyguard of Princess Diana is still reported to be injured and in hospital. We don't have full details on his condition. We do know that the car was completely demolished as it piled into a concrete pylon and then spun around and hit a retaining wall inside a tunnel at the Alma Bridge. We're going to take a short break. We'll come back right after this.
This is the place to turn for the events shaping your world today. This is CNN.
You've heard a lot lately about plans to protect you from sexually transmitted diseases. The rapid expansion of AIDS and herpes and syphilis demand the best plan available. God's had a plan that works all along. A message of hope from your friends and neighbors at the First Baptist Church of Chalmette.
While walking in a toy store the day before today, I overheard a crayon box with many things to say.
I don't like red, said yellow, and green said, nor do I. And no one here likes orange, but no one knows just why.
Well, I bought that box of crayons and took it home with me and drew with all the colors so the crayons could all see.
That each of us is special and everyone's unique, but it's when we get together that the picture is complete.
This is CNN.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Princess Diana of Britain is dead. She died after being involved in a high-speed car accident alongside her companion Dodi Al-Fayed, who was also killed. A driver of the car was killed as well in the crash. A bodyguard of Princess Diana is reported to be in serious condition in a Paris hospital where he's undergoing treatment. We continue to follow this story. We're understanding now that, according to hospital sources, Princess Diana's body will be returned to Britain sometime on Sunday. There is no information exactly at this point when that might be on Sunday. However, we do know that thus far there's been no announcement of any kinds of funeral arrangements. It's one of the considerations that will probably not be taken to account, at least for several more hours. Princess Diana's death ends a story that began as the stuff of fairy tales, but there never was a happily ever after for Princess Diana. There were marital troubles, depression, and divorce. CNN's Tim Lister looks back on Diana's story.
It was the wedding of the century. A marriage that captivated not just the people of Britain, but the world. On a summer's day in 1981, Lady Diana Spencer married the Prince of Wales amid the splendor of St. Paul's Cathedral. She was young, diffident, and uncertain, not used to the formality and rules that governed the House of Windsor, and not used to the unrelenting media spotlight that would become part of her daily existence. The expectation was that she and Prince Charles would continue the line of succession, providing at least one heir who would assume the throne in the 21st century. And just a year after the marriage, their first son, Prince William, was born, soon to be followed by another son, Harry. Everything seemed to be going according to the script carefully prepared by Buckingham Palace. But Diana was depressed by her frequent separations from Prince Charles and by what she perceived as his excessive devotion to royal duty. She hated being away from her sons and was both hurt and angered by constant speculation about her husband's alleged relationships with other women. She spoke later of Lady Camilla Bowles, a longtime friend of Charles, as being the third person in her marriage. For his part, Prince Charles appeared to resent her immense popularity with the public, which stole the limelight from him, and his interests The countryside, ecology, fishing and hunting were incompatible with hers. Music, fashion. Amid intense media attention, it became clear that Princess Diana and Prince Charles were growing apart. The newspapers would measure the days they spent separated. A book, Diana, Her Story, by Andrew Morton, revealed details of her unhappiness. She had developed eating disorders and was even reported to have attempted suicide. Eventually, but out of the blue, the then British Prime Minister John Major announced that Diana and Charles would separate. The British monarchy had not faced such a crisis since the abdication of King Edward VIII in 1936. But the princess was not to be deterred from maintaining her high public profile. Once the couple's divorce was confirmed and freed from the shackles of royal protocol, she began to be seen in public with other men. She focused her official life on several charities, as varied as the Royal Ballet in London and the Red Cross campaign against the landmines. Within the past few months, she had been in Angola and Bosnia to see at first-hand the effects of landmines as a guest of the International Red Cross, a stand that courted political controversy. She managed to combine her charitable work with a high-profile social calendar. But it was her liaison with Dodi El Fayed that had seemed to be the most serious since the breakup of her marriage. Tim Lister, CNN, reporting.
For more now, on reaction in Britain to Princess Diana's death, we're going to be joined now by Prue LaWarren in our London studios. Prue, this is someone in Britain, it's hard to explain it to other people. Yes, she did many good things. Yes, she was active for charities. She was willing to reach out to other people, but there was just something magic there, some enchantment, some charisma that really held all of the British public captive audience.
That's absolutely right. The only way that perhaps would sum the enormity of this event up would be to compare the loss that Britain is feeling this morning with the loss perhaps of JFK in America so many years ago. That really is the size of the status that Diana has had in this country, whether it's with very small children who she's always made feel extremely comfortable, even though she's such a famous woman, to the very elderly. Of course, reaction this morning is flowing in right from the very top. For example, Tony Blair, the Prime Minister, who has just returned from holiday in France, where ironically Diana was also holidaying, has said the following: "I am utterly devastated. The whole of our country, all of us, will be in a state of shock and mourning. Diana was a wonderful, warm and compassionate person." It is just 7:30 in the morning here, and the people of Britain have woken up to this news. Of course, church services will be held across the country as normal here on Sunday, but we can expect that prayers for Diana and the family will be said right across the nation. Jim?
Prue, she was supposed to, and correct me here if I'm wrong, she was supposed to have returned to Britain, I believe, in just a matter of a couple of days to meet, of course, with her sons, wasn't she?
That's right. It's the beginning of school term here very shortly, and Prince William and Prince Harry have to go back to school, and it's really the wrapping up here of the summer vacation. They had spent several weeks with her, including off the coast of France, and they'd also been in Balmoral, which is the traditional family seat for the royal family. So this was to be the wrapping up of the summer holidays, where Diana would again see her sons.
Is it odd in any sense that Prince Charles issued a statement, a joint statement with the Queen, his mother?
No. The royal family traditionally has to say, and does say, very little. As one of our earlier guests said, it doesn't have to make the announcement. When it chooses to, it will simply say a few words, which it has done this morning.
As you survey the British public reaction, we've been talking about this debate with the paparazzi. If it is proved that they were being pursued at the time of this accident, of course, it is going to spark a ferocious debate in Britain.
It's hard to convey to you the depth of the emotion that's being felt here this morning. People are just disgusted. There's really no other word for it. And you're absolutely right, whether it's MPs or people ringing into radio, people talking this morning in churches, there is nothing else to talk of in Britain this morning. It would be difficult enough for this country if Diana had passed away for some other reason, but to have passed away because of the paparazzi, she had complained about them endlessly. Even only last week in Le Monde, she had expressed her distress. So you're absolutely right. There will be nothing else to talk about in Britain this week.
As you've noted, the people getting up, trying to deal with their emotions in all of this, it is not yet the kind of situation where people can make a physical outpouring of those emotions to gather in some place. Might they gather later today outside Kensington Palace, or?
It is difficult, as you say, because Diana was in France. And traditionally, when things happen like this in Britain, people would go to Buckingham Palace. But Kensington Palace, as you say, was the residence of Diana. In fact, they are only, I'd say, 1 mile apart, a couple of kilometres apart. But traditionally here, people will want to go somewhere and gather somewhere. I think it's unclear whether people will go to Kensington Palace. The difference between Kensington Palace and Buckingham Palace is that outside Buckingham Palace there is a very large public area. People have traditionally, for years and years, gathered there. For example, when there was the royal wedding between Diana and Charles, that whole avenue was absolutely teeming with people. Whenever there's been royal news, and traditionally much better news than what we're having today, thousands of people would gather there, whereas in front of Kensington Palace it is just a very narrow, relatively speaking, a narrow avenue. So it's hard to know what people will do, but certainly they'll want to gather somewhere.
All right, we're going to take a look now at some videotape that was taken at Kensington Palace this morning to see some of the reaction, and they're spontaneous, of course. Flowers being brought to that area. Prue, is this right near the residence? How close are they getting? All right. We see there that people have brought some flowers. They have gathered outside Kensington Palace today. Here's what some of them had to say.
She's a saint and she deserves nothing less because she did a lot of tremendous work. But at the same time, she coaxed a lot of attention, and people will say she paid the ultimate price for that as well.
Well, I just think it's a really sad day for the world, for everybody, I think, because she was famous all over the world. It's just very sad for her, and I feel sorry for the family, the children, and everybody else.
Well, I think it's a tragic circumstance. I've just come down to show my support to all those that have been left behind, and obviously very upset by the news.
Prue, do you find it unusual that people would be out before even it's still dark in Britain, bringing flowers there?
No, not at all. Diana is just the most well-known figure that you could possibly imagine. I think in Britain, when the divorce happened last year, opinion was very much divided, even within the editorials in the newspaper. People took sides. But an event like this, all of that is cast aside, and everybody today, whatever they may have said in the past, is absolutely appalled and grief-stricken. And the people I've spoken to this morning, some of them have just been choking their words back, and they didn't necessarily enjoy her company or have even met her. So no, not at all. I think people will just want to talk to others about what's happened.
Dodi Al-Fayed, on the other hand, Harrods, a very successful, very renowned department store owned by his father, Mohammed Al-Fayed, but he had a different image, did he not, in Britain?
Absolutely, and yet it isn't surprising to me that Diana and Dodi shared this friendship. Diana was, in a sense, at the very heart of the establishment here. One can hardly think of a more establishment title than Diana, Princess of Wales. And yet she regarded herself very much as an outsider. She thought that she had not been entirely accepted by the royal family. She thought that her causes and her desire to help homeless people, not just on landmines, but to, on occasion some years ago, take her young boys to a homeless shelter to show them the less fortunate side of life. She didn't just belong to the establishment, she was also very much fighting for the underdogs. And you're right, Dodi Al-Fayed was not an establishment figure. He wasn't from a traditional Anglo-Saxon nobility family in this country. And so you can see very much, I think, that it was very understandable that she saw in Dodi, and also in the experience of his father, who's been trying for many years, despite having lived here for decades, to get a British passport. He hasn't been accepted by the establishment. And I think Diana, who has made it her business to understand people who are outside, very much shared something with Dodi.
Dodi Al-Fayed, of course, was the son of an Egyptian billionaire who had the famed Harrods department store among his businesses. I want to look a little bit more into his life. His life was among the rich and famous. He owned homes in London, Los Angeles, New York. He spent a lot of time in Hollywood. He was known there as a millionaire film producer. Many of us, of course, have seen and remember his films. We learn more about that aspect of his life now from CNN's Ann McDermott, who is in Los Angeles.
He co-produced or put up money for movies like Chariots of Fire and Steven Spielberg's Hook. And Hollywood people who knew Dodi Fayed said they'd miss him.
Well, I was shocked, saddened. He was a bright, studious man, very desirous of making a contribution to the Hollywood community. He did love beautiful women and collected them with great ferocity.
One beautiful woman who said she was engaged to Fayed, who sued him when it became clear he was seeing Princess Diana, even she had kind things to say about him before he was killed.
Yes, I found him very down to earth, very quiet and charming. I liked him a lot.
Late Saturday night, Kelly Fisher's attorney, Gloria Allred, issued this statement about her client.
Absolutely devastated. She's in an enormous amount of pain. She's just stunned.
Fayed's former publicist reacted to the initial reports that Fayed's car was chased by paparazzi.
I think there's going to have to be a significant amount of laws changed now to protect the rights of celebrities. The paparazzi's behavior has gone beyond obnoxious into the criminal, in my opinion.
The news was just sinking in late Saturday in the town where Fayed sometimes made movies.
It was a great shock. I can't believe that it happened.
Oh, that's bad news. What? I didn't know. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Ann McDermott, CNN, Los Angeles.
All right, now we're going to go back to Paris, and Chris Dickey, he is Newsweek's bureau chief there in Paris. Some more information about the cause of the crash. There's been a lot of speculation that Princess Diana and Dodi Al-Fayed's car was being chased by paparazzi. Chris Dickey, what can you tell us?
Well, I think a couple of things are becoming apparent. One is that Princess Diana and Dodi Al-Fayed would have left the Ritz knowing full well that the paparazzi were out there and apparently intended to try and outrun them. They took this car that was more discreet certainly than some of the Fayed's other cars, a large late-model Mercedes, gray, very nondescript on the Paris streets, and they headed out to the quays to try and outrun the paparazzi. They may have thought they could give them the slip and then saw them close in and just the driver put the pedal to the metal, but he was a Ritz security man driving the car. So the idea, it seems to have been for them to leave the Ritz and go back to the large house that Mohammed Al-Fayed, Dodi's father, owned in the 16th arrondissement and just get away. But they didn't have to at all. They could have stayed in the Ritz because they own that too, the Fayeds.
Well, there's been some confusion. Of course, no one knows for sure, may never know what their actual destination was, if they even had one. They were driving through the streets of Paris. Any more indications there about the rate of speed that the car was traveling at?
Well, a few minutes ago, I drove along the route that they probably would have taken and drove through the tunnel where the crash took place. It's been cleared away now, but it's all the debris has been cleared away. But you can see in one of the columns in the middle of the tunnel, about a foot in diameter, there's a big chunk of reinforced concrete freshly taken out. It looks as if that's what the car hit. And judging from the wreck, which I saw, it must have been going over 60 miles an hour. That's a big, solid car, and it was totally accordioned. I'm sure you've seen the pictures.
We're getting some word now that French surgeons actually had revived Princess Diana at the scene. When she arrived at the hospital, they had to perform a major chest surgery, closing a wound in her heart and trying to restore some of a terrific, apparently, blood loss.
Yeah.
Any more that you have from the doctors or from people at the hospital?
Well, what happened was they tried to revive her, obviously, at the scene. She was in very bad condition at the scene. The French emergency workers are very capable. They couldn't revive her. They took her to the hospital. The anesthesiologists, the surgeons, the experts in reanimation went to work on her immediately. They could see that she had lost a lot of blood in her chest cavity. When they opened her up, they found that she had a major wound in her pulmonary vein. They sewed that up. They tried to close that up, and they worked for 2 hours, both working inside her chest cavity and externally to try and restore her heartbeat, but they could not. And so at 4 o'clock in the morning, she was declared dead.
All right, we earlier heard from the doctor on the scene. Christopher Dickey, if you stay right there, we heard from the doctor on the scene at the Paris hospital describing what they faced.
Initiale. À son arrivée à l'hôpital de la Pitié-Salpêtrière, elle présentait un choc hémorragique.
At her arrival at the Salpêtrière hospital, she was in a condition of serious hemorrhage and shock. Shortly thereafter, she went into cardiac arrest. An urgent surgery showed a severe wound to the left pulmonary vein. Despite the closure of this wound and a 2-hour external and internal cardiac massage, no efficient respiratory circulation could be established, and she died at 4 a.m. Paris time.
Chris, what was, excuse me, Chris, you were at the hospital. The reaction of some of the hospital staff, they certainly had no idea as they went to work earlier in the evening that they would be dealing with a casualty case such as Princess Diana.
No, they looked exhausted. The doctors that I saw, the one that you saw speaking there, and another one who was the chief of surgery. They obviously are well experienced in shock trauma cases, but in this one they had worked extremely hard. They had worked with the British ambassador close at hand, with the interior minister close at hand, with the whole world watching them, and they did, I'm sure, everything that could possibly be done. When that press conference was over, I talked briefly to Dr. Liu, the one you saw on the screen a moment ago, and he just did not want to talk about it anymore. He was a man who I would say was exhausted.
He was exhausted. Certainly the people of Paris, the people of Britain are in a bit of shock this day. It is perhaps, Christopher, because Princess Diana was so full of life, this comes so unexpected. What's the reaction that you've seen?
I think people are stunned. I think people were... the French liked Diana. They followed with some amusement and sometimes consternation all the peccadillos and ins and outs of what was going on in the royal family in Britain. But they found her a very attractive person, and I think they kind of fancied the idea that she might even want to move to Paris if she got the chance. She had said she might think about leaving Britain, and I think many French people hoped that she would move here, where it was thought people could lead lives of much greater discretion, much more quietly, with much more sort of discreet enjoyment than she has ever been able to do in Britain. So I think people were disturbed that this would happen here, and obviously greatly saddened that Princess Diana, a beautiful and graceful woman, has died.
Christopher Dickey of Newsweek magazine, thanks so much for this and some of the other perspectives that you've been giving us throughout the evening as we've been covering this story. I want to go now to back to Britain, outside Kensington Palace. CNN's Brent Sadler is there. Brent, your view.
Thank you, Jim. The last few hours, both here at Kensington Palace and at Buckingham Palace, and I can tell you that there is an overwhelming sense of first disbelief and shock that one can see not only in the faces and behavior of people who've been laying flowers and wreaths outside the iron gates of both Kensington Palace and Buckingham Palace, but also in many of the media here. There is a tremendous numbness that we are all feeling here watching these events slowly unfold. There's not a great deal to see here. Kensington Palace remains still closed. There is some movement of police officers in and out of the complex here, but we see no lights burning inside the palace, nor did we a short time ago at Buckingham Palace. We have seen people from all over the world, from Germany, from the Middle East, and from other parts of Europe here, coming to the gate and putting their own personal mementos, bunches of flowers, roses, on the pavement beside the security officers guarding the entrances to both Buckingham Palace and to Kensington Palace here. I've spoken to some of these people and asked them why they have come here, why the Princess of Wales meant something special to them, and each and every one of them, some with tears in their eyes, said that she made a big impact, not only here in Britain but across the world. Indeed, Princess Diana I have met on a couple of occasions myself. I was reporting outside the home in Rumsey, Hampshire, when she married Prince Charles after their honeymoon. I've seen friends of hers only yesterday. In fact, last night, people I was dining with talked about the personal friendship that Diana could strike up with anybody. For example, a friend of mine only recently received some flowers on the birth of his child, especially from the Princess of Wales. She had this capacity to touch the hearts of people, and we are seeing that here this morning. It's just dawn here. We're seeing people wanting to make their personal approach to Diana, to her memory. In fact, some people came here thinking that she was still alive. I spoke to a young couple a short time ago. They thought she was still clinging on to life, and they were distressed and tearful when I told them that she had in fact died. So that's how things are shaping up here at the moment, Jim. Great sadness, great shock.
Well, Brent, I know that we're getting word now that Prince Charles awakened both of the young princes, Prince William, 15, and Prince Harry, age 12, in the early morning hours before dawn. According to reports that we're getting now, he informed them that their mother had died as a result of this. The boys are in Balmoral at the estate there where the royal family traditionally vacations at this time of year, but of course they should be starting school soon. And really, as one surveys all of this, the boys have to be the real victims in this, the ones who perhaps will suffer more than any other. The feeling there, any expressions of feeling for Harry and William?
Absolutely. I spoke to a couple of middle-aged women who were deeply concerned about the future of the two princes, and they were also concerned about the fact that they felt that not enough had been done in the United Kingdom to protect the privacy of the Princess of Wales, her movements not only in the United Kingdom but overseas as well, and were wanting to see the government tighten up on the privacy laws of this country. As far as the princes are concerned, yes, I think it's generally accepted here that those two boys are going to be paramount in the minds of Britons today. First, they will wake up to the news of what has happened to the Princess of Wales and the details of the car accident in Paris and the death of Dodi Fayed. And then they will want to look at what happens next. Because of the status of the Princess of Wales on the periphery of the royal family, there's great uncertainty as to how her funeral, when that takes place, will be formulated, just how much the royal family will take part in that. Obviously, the two princes are her children. They will be central to that funeral when that takes place, but just how much protocol is going to be involved in that, how much the establishment is going to be involved in setting up the details for what happens next, is still very much on the drawing board. There's no precedent for this quite like this, and I think that we will be seeing Buckingham Palace and the British authorities here, the government, working very hard to ensure that what happens in terms of funeral and in terms of remembrances and services and so on and so forth will be done in the right and proper way. Diana does have a great deal of affection here in terms of her following. People want to see this done right, and there has been so much exposed in terms of the princess's relationship with the royal family and the monarchy and the government. I think that there will be an overwhelming desire to see what happens next in terms of funeral arrangements and services to be done in the right and proper way, Jim.
Brent, just very briefly, in your view, certainly there are many members of the royal family that are popular. The Queen Mum, of course, is an immensely popular figure, but none ever seem to capture the same magnetism as Princess Diana. Is there an explanation or not?
I think the explanation for that is very simply that the Princess of Wales knew how to use the media. She was a media star. She was a beautiful woman who knew how to dress, who knew how to capture style. She was able to capitalize on that and use that, some would say manipulate it, against those that she wished to have arguments with, particularly, obviously, her former husband. But certainly the media and the way the media works these days made Diana a one-off, a very special princess in terms of the royal family, in terms of the way the media treated that, and a media star. For that, she has obviously paid the ultimate price. Jim.
Brent Sadler, thanks much for your perspectives outside Kensington Palace. CNN is going to continue its live coverage of the death of Princess Diana of Britain. She died in Paris in a high-speed car crash alongside her companion, Dodi Al-Fayed, in the early morning hours. The driver of the car was also killed. We'll have more details of the story in case you're just tuned in. I'm Jim Clancy at CNN Center. We'll be back after this.
This is the place for complete coverage of live breaking news wherever it occurs. This is CNN.